Thumbs up. Okay. All right. Well, hello and welcome to this evening's program, Connecting Scholars to Work, a collaboration between KC Scholars and KC Global Design. Tonight is about discussing careers in architecture, engineering, and construction. My name is Charmel Winsett, Director of Workforce and Alumni Engagement for KC Scholars. I'm a proud graduate of Hickman Mills High School and earned my college degree at Mizzou. I'm especially passionate about the work of KC Scholars because my mother was a first-generation college goer. Also, I am a benefactor of scholarships. Had it not been for a scholarship, I would not have been able to go to the University of Missouri Columbia to pursue my degree. KC Scholars is committed to the mission of increasing shared prosperity for all in the Kansas City region by doing two things: increasing post-secondary education attainment and certificates, and connecting you, our scholars, to work. Tonight is about real-world opportunities, real-world jobs that will change the future of this region. Our aim at KC Scholars is to ensure that each of you graduate, stay, work, and live right here in Kansas City. And in order for us to do that, it's our job to show you all the possibilities that are available to you right here in Kansas City. There are several things that KC Scholars is doing right now to connect you to the workforce. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn to get weekly updates on available internships and jobs. You can also go to kcscholars.org and click on the Workforce tab to see what's happening in terms of workforce readiness, upcoming events that are connected to different job sectors. Please stay tuned because we have some really cool things happening, like mock interviews, workshops on resume writing. So we hope that you will join us in some of these activities. On behalf of our CEO, Dr. Beth Tankersley Bankhead, our staff, our board, our amazing and supportive community partners and donors, we thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm so excited to have a very special collaborator in the house with us tonight, and that is our moderator, Mary McCann, the Executive Director of KC Global Design. One of the things that's really cool about KC Global Design, they were an early adopter and supporter of KC Scholars, and they even have several named scholars. That means they're investing today in scholars that are looking to make change right here in the region. And so we invite you to listen as Mary and the other panelists that are here with us tonight to share with you some amazing things about this sector. Mary, tell us a little bit about yourself and about KC Global Design and why you're so special.
Well, Charmel, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us and our group to collaborate with you on this. It's truly an honor to, be a partner of KC Scholars and to have these wonderful students with us today. You had mentioned that we do have a named KC Scholar, and I see Daniel Pena in the house today. So Daniel, thank you for joining us. Please ask some questions throughout the program today. We're really excited to see you in attendance. So a little bit about me. I am a graduate from the University of Kansas. I grew up in Leavenworth, Kansas, and attended KU. Unlike so many of the people on the call today, and I'm so impressed with the scholars here, I actually have a psychology background. And so when I graduated from college, I didn't have as many career opportunities as the engineers and architects that we'll hear from today, and then the KC Scholars that we're going to hear from on the call too, interested in these technical career paths. And we want to help tell that story and kind of connect the dots. And it's the story I wish I would have heard when I was a high school student, because the opportunities you have available to you right here in Kansas City for education and employment are robust. And KC Global Design exists to tell that story. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about our industry and what's going on here in Kansas City, and then we'll get to our fabulous panel lineup that we have here with us today. A little bit about KC Global Design. We're a collective of architecture, engineer, and construction firms here in the Kansas City region. We have nearly 30 firms that have come together and united forces to really tell this story that I'm going to share on this slide. Kansas City is home to over 500 architecture, engineering, and construction companies that have 20 employees or more in them. So think about that for a minute. A lot of the firms, like an average size architecture firm, might have about 10 employees. So those employees aren't, or those employers aren't even counted in this number. If you go down to people like sole proprietorships, companies that just have one person in this space, there's over 6,000 companies in the architecture, engineering, and construction space right here in the Kansas City region. And so our group has come together to tell that story because we need talent like yourselves, like the KC scholars on the call today, to have interest in our industry and to learn about it. So we really exist just to elevate our region and the work that we're doing within the region. We have exceptional talent and we want to continue to grow what we're doing. We do that through kind of 3 core programs. So we have an awareness arm, which is basically, marketing the effort. I dropped our kcglobaldesign.com website in the chat earlier. Please visit our website. That's one of the products of our wonderful marketing group that's helped pull together some great information and collateral about our industry here. We also have our talent work group, and that's the work group that works closely with Charmel and the KC Scholars Group. And we're all about just recruiting people to our industry. We want, people who may not have ever heard about architecture, engineering, and construction. If you're anything like me, back when I was in high school, I would have had no idea about any of this. So we definitely invite you to learn more, and we're here to tell that story. And then we also have an innovation group, which gets all these wonderful minds together to think about what should we be thinking about as an industry. So I just want to thank our member firms, for their support in telling this story and bringing us here today. And with that, would like to go ahead and introduce our panelists, because they're the ones you're really here to hear from today. I get the pleasure of facilitating the conversation, but let me pull up the screen here, and then I'm going to make a few changes on my end. And I'm going to pin our panelists, and we'll go ahead and get started with introductions. So you see here today, we have 4 panelists on the call representing different areas of the architecture, engineering, and construction sector. And our goal today is really to educate you about this industry, kind of give you some introduction information so that you can go and have an informed decision about maybe what major might appeal to you, or what internship you might want to apply for, what long-term career you might be interested in. So to kick us off, I'd love for all of our panelists to just we'll go around, I'll call on you to kind of share, your name, your title, what you do, what high school and college you attended, and the degree you obtained. So Vinny, we'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Vinny Hun. I grew up in Blue Springs, Missouri, went to Blue Springs High School as well. I attended the University of Kansas, where I got a master's of architecture. I also did a little studying abroad in Tokyo, Malaysia, and Singapore, and I did some design build work at KU as well, with Studio to 4, where we designed and built a house. Currently, I'm at BRR Architecture. I'm an architectural designer. I work on distribution centers and a few remodels for Walmart. I've been there for about 8 or so months now.
Great, thank you, Benny. All right, next, Crystal.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Just let me know if I get muddy or you can't hear me. So I am actually originally from California, from Los Angeles, but we have moved here last July due to my husband's service in the Navy. They sent him to school at the University of Kansas, and so I decided to go back to school as well to get my master's. So I went to school out in California, Riverside, California, if anyone's familiar. It's in the desert. It's very hot. Kind of not like here, but except much more dry. Love my hometown though. I love California. Went to school out there, got my bachelor's in civil engineering, worked for a little bit in the water industry, and then realized I really wanted to switch to structures. And so right now I'm in my master's program, one more year to go at the University of Kansas. And I'm doing a summer internship with Burns & McDonnell. Their headquarters is here in Kansas City. It's a fabulous company. You guys should definitely check them out. Right now I work in the aviation and federal practice. And so we do the facilities for aircrafts, like big hangars, terminals for airports, and any other facilities on federal military bases.
Good. Jamu, tell us a little bit about yourself and background.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamu Webster, and I'm president, founder, and CEO of Dubois Consultants. We're a civil and structural engineering firm, and we've been in business. This is our 33rd year in business. I, too, am from Los Angeles, California, born and raised there. Did my undergraduate work at Southern University, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is one of the HBCUs, historic Black colleges and universities. I came to Kansas City in 1980 to work for Burns & McDonnell after leaving a firm that I worked in while I was in college and then right afterwards. And so I started my career there at Burns & McDonnell, was there for 4 years, and then transitioned to Butler Manufacturing, and then after that went into business. So our firm does a variety of work. Right now we're involved at the airport project, where we provided the structural and civil design at the terminal facility and also in the parking area, teaming up with SOM, which is probably one of the largest structural engineering companies in the country. But our main focus is in water infrastructure. So we do quite a bit of treatment plant work, and there we go. So our firm is 24 people, and we have offices here in Kansas City and one in Wichita, Kansas. Oh, I didn't mention, but I also have a master's degree in civil engineering, bachelor's in civil engineering, master's in civil engineering from the University of Missouri, and my specialty is structural engineering.
May.
Hi guys, I'm May Woodruff. I'm a local South Kansas City and graduated from Ruskin High School in 2016. And I started at Black & Veatch last August as an electrical engineer. And hopefully, you know, they'll keep me around so I can make my solid year. I think they will. But I graduated from Missouri S&T in 2020 with my bachelor's in electrical engineering, and I'm currently looking for master's programs to go back and get more into the renewable energy and economic side of power. So.
Very good. All right, well, I'm going to start with a question for each of you, and would love to just know, like, how did you decide to pursue your degree? We kind of know what you chose, but like, what was your thought process getting there? And well, May, I'm going to start with you this time.
Sounds good. Okay, so in second grade, I did a science fair project, and like every kid, I came home, and right before I wanted to go to bed, or my parents were trying to send me to bed, I was like, hey, I need this project for like tomorrow, please. And my dad had all the spare parts in his garage. He has a bit of like an electrical technician background, and we built a very simple circuit. And fast forward, when I was in high school, I joined First Robotics here in Kansas City. Had a chance through that to network with companies like Burns & Mac, Black & Veatch, colleges like KU and MU and Missouri S&T, where I ended up going, and electrical engineering specifically because it had the least chemistry on the roster of courses to take.
Hey, very fair. All right, Jamu, what about you?
Well, I tell you, I was in the 11th grade and hanging out with a friend of mine. We were standing in front of his house, and a friend of my uncle, who was a neighbor, left his house, happened to be on his way to the neighborhood store, crossed the street and engaged us in conversation. And at the time, being in 11th grade, And someone asked me, what did I want to do? I would tell them I want to be a teacher. I want to be a history teacher. But his name was Tony Brown, and he engaged the two of us in conversation. And I asked him, what is it that you do? And he says, I'm a civil engineer. I said, really? But first of all, you know, an African-American kid growing up in Los Angeles, I had never met an engineer, let alone heard much about engineering. But here's the first engineer I ever met was a Black man standing in front of me and saying he was a civil engineer. And to this day, I'm convinced that if he said, oh, I'm an architect, oh, I'm an electrical engineer, oh, I'm a mechanical engineer, you know, whatever he said, I would be that to this day. And the reason that's important to me is because it taught me a lesson. I never take for granted talking to young people about their careers, because you never know what you might say to one young person that might change their life and put them in another direction. So I want to use that to say thank you for having me. But I got started in my career exactly how you young people are doing right now, looking at engineers and listening and talking to them.
Jamin, thank you. That's such a powerful story, and exactly why we're here today. Crystal.
Yeah, I did not know what civil engineers were either. My dad was an electronics engineer, but I did not know much about civil until I went to college. And after my first year, I first majored in math. I also wanted to be a teacher. And the dean of the engineering school at another actual school found out about me and kind of just pursued me. He was trying to recruit people. And he told me that civil engineers are basically people who help others live. And they can elevate the quality of life with water and structures. And that really kind of ignited my imagination. And I decided, yeah, I want to go for that. And I also told him, well, I really do want to teach. And he's just said, you can always teach after you do engineering. But if you stay with math, you will only be able to do math. And I'm sure there are much more things you can do with math. It's still a great major, so I don't want to, dissuade anybody. But I am very thankful for that conversation. And I do love engineering and how the civil engineering specifically does deal with people and how they live. So.
Thank you, Crystal. Yes, and I think often that gets missed, just the way that engineering impacts the quality of life. So that's a great point. Benny.
When I was younger, I liked to draw a lot, so I tried to find a practical way to do that. Ended up taking a few drafting classes in high school, and thought, hey, I want to be an architectural engineer. I ended up signing up for the wrong major, but I ended up in the design portion of it, and that was something I liked a lot more. I loved the design process. I loved doing all of that, so I ran with it, and now I'm here. So.
Okay, very cool. Well, I love all your stories. They're all kind of different, but all led you to this wonderful career that you're now in. And with that, let's talk a little bit about what your day looks like. So we'll go around again, and let's start with Benny from the architecture practice. Kind of high level, what kind of projects do you work on? And what are your activities? What's your day-to-day?
So I work on distribution centers and warehouses. So they're 1 million plus square footage buildings. But pretty much my day-to-day is I work on a lot of construction documents. I collaborate with a lot of consultants throughout the day. So it's a lot of meetings. It's kind of a lot of active problem solving throughout the day, which is something I really enjoy about what I do. And then every now and then I do get the opportunity to design, but I know that's kind of a little bit higher up, a little bit later too. But generally, that's kind of what my day is like.
Very good. May, I'll go to you this time. We'll switch it up.
Sure. So I just want to say that as an electrical engineer, just like as many different types of engineers, there's so many things that you can get into. And I'm sure our structural and several civil people will attest to that too. There's so many different things you can get into, but I work specifically in the energy sector. So I work on building solar and wind farms. And so day to day, That can be anything from doing like a calculation to see how many like volts or like amps a certain system can take, to doing physical drawings actually, and picking out different places and helping to edit with the drafting team and things like that. So that's kind of my day to day.
Crystal.
Yeah. Well, right now in summer, as I'm doing an internship, let's see, it can definitely range, like May said. Right now, we are working on a couple projects at some different bases. And so it went from just designing a building, but before you design a building, you also have to think about what kind of loads or forces is this building going to see. So yeah, learning about those different loads, there's earthquake and wind, things that you put on the roof, things that make up the walls, just all those things. You kind of think about it. And, for structures, we really design the bones of a building. So we take all those loads and we have different computer software that we use to draw up the model on the computer and apply these loads, and some really cool stuff. A lot of calculations, sometimes reading books, and meeting with other people who are on the project, like architects and electrical, mechanical. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of interaction with different teams at a big firm like Burns & McDonnell, where everyone's in-house. And so it's just working on a project day to day, and dealing with lots of different team members. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I appreciate you picking up on that kind of relationship aspect of this industry. It takes everyone to bring these projects, these structures that bring our communities together to life. And Ajamu, I'd love for you to share about your day-to-day, and then I'm going to dive a little deeper with you because you are the most educated, most experienced one on the call. So.
Sometimes people say old, but that's okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, my day is pretty interesting because on our team we have designers, engineers, we have project managers, and there are folks who manage departments for us. So what I'm engaged with on a daily basis are the people who are managing the people who are doing the work. So give me an example. What happens is you'll have a project, and on that project, there will be someone whose job is to manage the project. We call them a project manager. And their job is to make sure that everyone plays well together. So if we're working with architects, that the architects are playing well, that the civils, the electrical, we're all getting along. But the project manager's role is to make sure that the project gets done on time and it gets done on budget. And so for me, the people in my office are reporting to me on the status of their projects. And I know you all have seen people start something and you think, oh, they'll be done with that in 3 months. And you come back 6 months later, it's not done. Well, that's because of somehow or another, the project got off schedule. So I'm the person in my role, I have to make sure that our managers are keeping the projects rolling. And then it gives me a chance to do some things that I really like to do. I like training new and up and coming engineers. I enjoy that, and training project managers. And so I have folks who have been with me over 20 years, and I remember them. One young man actually has been with me 27 years. He started with me when he was 16 years old as an intern, and now he is a senior structural project manager and can do just about anything that we need to have done, and he manages other engineers. And so that, to me, is an example of what I really like to do. I really like to develop young people that come into the profession and help them find their way, either out in the field in construction, working on, which could be one of our field crews, in the office as a technician, working with what we used to call drafting, which is now CAD and Revit, or being an engineer or project manager. And if I can do that during a day's time, then my time was well spent.
That's wonderful, Ajamu. Thank you for that. And so let's talk about that construction perspective a little bit more, Ajamu. You mentioned, kind of you have your construction project manager that's making sure things are on time and on budget. oftentimes there's a perception that construction is just the hammer and the nails, you're out in the field building the project, but kind of break down the different career paths within construction for this group.
Well, I'd be glad to. There's the side of a laborer who is kind of an entry level person who's out there just learning the profession. And then there are, of course, there are the journey people who are out there who are very experienced. So you have the crafts portion of it. And these people are out there doing either the plumbing or doing the concrete work or pulling the wire for the electrical work. So you have that portion of it. But I don't know if you're like me, but I just remember driving by construction sites and looking over there, and it looks like ants, like 1,000 people running around doing stuff. And I used to ask myself, how in the world do they know who's supposed to be doing what at what particular time? It just looked like a lot of people running around. So on a construction site, there are superintendents, and their job is to make sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to do when it is supposed to get done. So they are kind of the supervisors of the construction crews. And then up the level of that are the project managers who are managing the scope, the schedule, the budget, who ordering material, making sure the material gets there on time. There are the inspectors who are making sure that the work is being done to plan and specs. So yes, there was a time when it was all about just coming out there and hammering with a nail. But now, the drawings that are produced electronically in a platform called Revit or BIM that's produced electronically, the engineers design in that 3D environment, and then that environment goes out to the contractors. So they plan their work, they order their material, and they actually build it off of a 3D environment. So what does that mean? Everyone out there who's got an eye for technology and want to be in the technology space and working with computers and software and programming and coding and all of that, guess what? That goes on in construction now too. So we are watching this integration of the professions of design and construction all into a 3D environment, which means that you can be a person who really doesn't like to ever get their hands dirty, and you can be directly involved in construction. And on the other side of that too, you can be a person who really likes to get out in the field, really likes to see how it's built, really likes to be involved in that, and that's very hands-on. And still, there's some IT technology you can have out there with you that supports that. So construction is not what it used to be. It is definitely moving into the digital age, into the digital space.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know, we have architects and engineers on our panel today, and they were able to share their degrees. Just if anyone is interested in a career in construction, that construction path that Ajamu talked about, there's that skilled trades path, of course. And then if you are interested more in like a college degree, like a construction science and management program or construction management, there's even construction engineering, are all great options there. So, all right, now let's kind of talk about, this relationship piece of our industry a lot, because sometimes people think engineers and you think like your head down, just like putting out drawings all day, but it's so much more than that. And so, Vinny, from the architecture side, tell us about how, your firm interacts with other firms to bring these buildings that you design to life.
Yeah, so on a consistent basis, I probably work with, electrical, plumbing, even fire and structural, and we all kind of have to mesh our drawings together. In my eyes, kind of what the architect does is kind of corral everything together. So on really a consistent basis, I'm always talking to someone at a different firm about how this problem is or how this affects everything. So it's really interesting to me because one thing you do collaterals to everybody else. So it's not just anything you do is important. It's kind of a team collective.
Great. And for the students on the call, when your teachers talk about the importance of teamwork and communication and collaboration, like this is exhibit A of what that looks like. Crystal, you had mentioned it a little bit, how you're constantly working even with other engineers within your firm. What's your take on this from the engineering side?
Yeah, I definitely have the student side, going back to school and learning to be on a team in a school in a school manner, but with working, it's all project based. And so you could be working on multiple projects at a time that have multiple teams. Maybe you're working with one team that is in a different phase of a project on one side, and then you have another project that's in a totally different phase and a totally different team. So I think one thing that's really cool about seeing all the different interactions is just learning what everyone else does and what's the way they love to do their work, or the best way they communicate or like to receive information. That seems to really be the best way to move forward. Of course, there's always going to be schedule conflicts or other types of things that come up that you didn't plan for, but I think it's been fun to see how teams work together amongst the conflict that can come up, or unplanned things, just because they set a good base of, hey, this is how we're going to handle this if something comes up. They have a good plan of how to walk through a project that could take years at a time. So that's definitely been interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing that more. I'm learning a project manager, like an architect, like Vinny said. They see a lot of the big picture of what goes into it, and sometimes my head just spins thinking about all the things they think about, and I'm just like, the structure. We got a lot too, but it's been fun to see what everyone else does, and it's a good thing about being on a team. So.
Absolutely. Okay, great. And Van, I appreciate you taking the lead. I just popped a note in the chat. So students, we want to make sure your questions get answered throughout this panel discussion too. So if you have any, pop them in the chat and I'll get to them as I'm wrapping up the questions that we have prepared here. So May, I'm going to throw a different question at you. What's your favorite part about your job? You're kind of new at it. What are you loving about it so far?
Well, I think a lot of companies like Black & Veatch and just many other companies in the area have moved to this kind of remote work setup. And I hate to say that like the best part about my job is not showing up in the office, but it really is. For me, it was one of the things that I very much dreaded when I was in college and when I did my internships. I really hated being stuck in a cubicle. It was really nice to see everybody. It makes collaboration very easily. But I really was not the type of person that liked to just sit in one place. I very much like to travel and take opportunities, and volunteering is a big part of my life, and that kind of takes me in a lot of different directions sometimes. So being able to have the option to be like, okay, I'm going to work, from my college town so I can help recruit, or I need to come up to Kansas City for the weekend, or I need to, be here, be there. It's been a really great opportunity for me, and having a company that works with me around my life and schedule to meet my work-life balance has been fantastic. So.
Awesome. Thank you for that. A question about that too, it's what are some tools that you're using then in this remote environment to make sure that you're staying connected and absorbing the knowledge that you need as you're kind of getting your foot in the door in your career?
Sure. So I actually started completely remote. I don't even have my badge yet. My office is just fixing to open back up, so I think I have to go get that soon. But we've used a lot of Teams and just really sharing my screen out and like having people on my team help me and point and like do different directions like that. But lots of communication. I'm IMing people all day on Teams and getting on meetings, and we have like a morning stand-up meeting and then like constantly talking to people all day long. So.
Okay, very cool. So still, even totally remote, lots of collaboration, those relationships, they're so important in your career, and especially so in this industry. Okay. Jama, I'm going to give you a question. So you're from LA area originally, end up in Kansas City. Why stay? Why have you made a career here? What do you like about the city?
Wow, it's a great question. First of all, like Crystal, if you come from Southern California, most people don't leave Southern California to go anyplace else in the country to live, because they figure, you got Disneyland, you got a beach, you got mountains, you got snow. If you want to go to the snow, you just go up to the mountains. If you want to go to the beach, you go to the beach. You do all that in the same day. So what makes Kansas City, for me, a great place to live and work is that it's a city small enough you can get your arms around. And the reason that that's important because getting your arms around it, meaning that you can learn the community, you can develop the contacts that you need to get, to advance your career, you get noticed. And kind of put it on scale, and when I came up in Los Angeles, that place is so big that you can be a big shot in Compton and nobody know about you in Linwood, or it's just hard to think about getting around there. In Kansas City, you can get around. The engineering architectural community in Kansas City, we know each other. I mean, we do, which means when there's a project opportunity comes up, we know who to contact, we can relate with, you can make it happen. The other thing too is part of your career development is getting involved in the profession, getting on and joining professional organizations, getting involved in boards and commissions. These things are doable in Kansas City and you can get recognized for it. And part of career growth is, yes, you're technically proficient, but also can you work well with other people? What kind of social involvement engagement do you have? And it helps you broaden your vision. And a city like Kansas City is a place where you can do that. And then one final note, whenever my relatives come from California and they come here in the springtime, they can't believe how beautiful it is. The summertime, they can't believe how green it is. The fall, they can't believe how cold it is. In the winter, they can't believe anybody can live here. So we got 2 out of 4. That's great. The other 2, hey, I can manage it because of all the other great benefits of being in a city of this size where you can get noticed and you can get known and you can have an impact.
And Vinny, did you say you're from Kansas City originally, or where are you from?
I'm originally from Blue Springs, Missouri, so it's 15, 20 minutes away from Kansas City.
That counts, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then you go to school, decide to come stay in Kansas City, okay, make your
Yeah.
career here. Why? Tell us your perspective.
I love the city. I like the events, everything that kind of happens. It's a very lively city. It's a growing city too. So that kind of excites me in my career. Architecturally, Kansas City is kind of one of the bigger cities for stadiums and sports complex and stuff like that. So that kind of excited me about how the city is and where it's going to grow and where it's going to go. So yeah.
So even if you grew up here, it's still offering you something new and different as a professional, huh?
Yeah, and I guess definitely living out in the suburbs and then transitioning. I'm still kind of in the suburbs now, but I'm closer to the city. So just even going around on the weekends, going to the river market, just walking around the cities, just great.
Awesome. And May, we know you're enjoying this remote life. Are you even in Kansas City right now? That's the $1 million question.
I am in Kansas City. I was born and raised in South Kansas City, and yeah, I still love it here. Love to come back here. A lot of my friends are still here. My whole family's still here. Plan on living here in the future too. So it's
Okay.
just always been such an amazing area to grow up in and be around, and it's got such like amazing like diversity, and I feel like you learn a lot from everybody around you here. And really, if you just open your eyes and look around, there's always something to do. There's always something to learn, and that's just so amazing about being in a city like this.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that we haven't really hit on yet, and I might need someone to raise their hand to offer because I don't know specifically which projects y'all have worked on that would be outside of the region. Okay, so one thing that we haven't talked about is we not only, design and construct buildings in Kansas City, absolutely, but we're doing this throughout the world. We're the leading architecture and engineering and design hub for really the world, definitely for the nation. And so even if you love Kansas City and you want to live here, you can have all these cool travel opportunities to go, work on your projects that are going to be somewhere else. So, who on the panelists, maybe raise your hand or step in and is working on a project that's not here in Kansas City or that would allow eventual travel opportunity for you? Vinny?
Yeah. One of the main clients for BRR is Walmart. So they're everywhere at this point. So that provides a lot of opportunities just to go scoping and traveling. And, I think it was during my internship, but I got to go to like Las Vegas and, we stayed an extra couple days there and still hung out. But there's projects in Hawaii, New York, everywhere. So, if you want to travel, they let you travel.
Okay. Crystal, it looked like you popped off mute for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, as an intern, I don't think I will go anywhere, but I have a lot of people in our team right now who are working either in Georgia or San Diego, California. They travel to Guam. We have projects really all over the world because wherever our military bases are, Burns and Mac does a lot of design work for those projects. Projects I work on currently are not in Kansas. They are in the Midwest on some Army bases. So it is a lot of fun just to see the different places that people can go. Some are going to be living off-site, in San Diego, California for months at a time. So great to do if you're single and, have that time when you become a young engineer. But there's definitely a lot of opportunities. So I know Burns Mac's not the only one that sends people everywhere, all over. So
For sure. And John, it looked like you popped off for a minute.
Well, our firm most of our work is regional. So we're from Texas, then Kansas, Nebraska, that sort of thing. So we're kind of regional. Early in my career, that was not the case. We did a lot of travel in my earlier assignments, and even when I worked at Burns & McDonnell many years ago. So, now though, with remote working, a couple of years ago, we thought there's no way you can do a project and not be there. You got to be on the ground. Now, you do so much remotely that a lot of those times when, I didn't really want to go, I don't have to go. And then there are times when you want to go and you may not need to go. So I think now there's the opportunity to work anywhere in the world from your chair at home. So I think that means that you can get a lot of virtual travel and some real travel. When it gets to construction, sometimes you really got to go. But there's the opportunity now we can work anywhere. And I'm excited about that because that means as a person, the other thing I do, of course, we hire people. I can hire from anywhere now. And that's a great thing. And the person doesn't have to leave where they are to work. So yeah, travel, I think, is a great thing. If you really want to travel, this is an industry that does travel, but now you can just virtually travel and work anywhere as well.
Oh, great point. And that's one thing, we kind of want to make sure the students on the call get that picture is, Kansas City has all these different firms. And so there's firms that travel, there's firms that don't, there's firms that allow remote work, there's firms that won't. So there's really, depending on what your preferences end up developing for, there's going to be a good fit for you right here in Kansas City where, you can still call it home, but, get a flavor of whatever it is you're seeking to do. Just a quick reminder, I want to make sure the students get their questions answered. So Van, I'm going to offer your question up to our group. Let's start with Ajamu here. Okay, you kind of had the longest career here. What are some key factors that have allowed you to be successful in your career?
Great question. Having a interest where you just got this curiosity about how things work, I think it's really important to have in engineering. I think secondly is being disciplined because this is a profession that has structure to it, how things can get done. But the important thing about learning that kind of discipline, it works in all parts of your life. So if you're a student and you study, you have your study habits down, you have a track that you're on, you become good at that. It really works in the profession. And then the other thing I would say is a willingness to learn. And there's one thing about being in a profession for as long as I've been in it. You don't see yourself as being in it as long. The picture that you all see on the screen, that's not what I see. When I look at myself, I see like 30 years old. I mean, so you can see how my glasses don't work very well. But the point I want to make is that when I got into this, in order to learn something, you either pulled out some books you had in college, you had to turn around and ask somebody who had more experience, or you had to wait until someone was going to teach you. The other thing you would do is just go to the library. I never had imagined that a time would come when all I had to do was click a button and anything I wanted to know would pop up in front of me and someone would be there to teach me how to do it. If I had that available to me when I was 18, 17, 19, 20 years old, I have no idea how far I could have gone. So I think this is a wonderful time to be your age going into this profession, because anything you want to learn, you don't have to wait on someone else to teach it to you. You can just pull it up on your phone. The other side of that means there's no excuse not to know. So use it to your advantage and grow with it. You all should grow, I would say, exponentially more than I grew at the time I came in the profession. And I'm excited for you to have that opportunity.
May, what's contributed to your success thus far in your career?
Yeah, so my dad always used to tell me like closed mouths don't get fed. And so I would say just asking a ton of questions, because really the whole world's out there for you. I remember having to like ask if there was any like opportunities to get involved, with professional societies as a high schooler, if I could like get a mentor as a high schooler in different industries and things like that. And there were resources that really helped me reach out, like Upward Bound and things like that. But really, if it's out there, talk to your teachers. Go on LinkedIn and look up electrical engineers that work at any one of these companies or any number of companies in Kansas City. I really haven't met any engineer that's not willing to talk to students, that's not willing to answer questions, that's not willing to like cultivate that like structure and knowledge. And I definitely attribute a lot of my success and where I'm at today to my mentor that I had. And that was like all through a minorities program through my high school, with like Black and Beach partnering with my high school, and then like other firms partnering with my high school. And me and my mentor just really clicked. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, and we talk almost every day now since we work for the same company. But she like consistently kept up on it. And don't feel like people, just care about what you want to do. Don't feel like you have to talk to an electrical engineer or a civil engineer, an architect or whatever, even if you want to be those things. Everybody has a different perspective, and it's really good to like learn those things and get those perspectives before you do, spend thousands of dollars, hopefully in scholarship money on your education or whatever you decide to do. It's really good to just talk to people. So I would say talk to everybody.
Yes, I love that. Be curious, ask questions. Crystal, what are you going to add to that?
Oh, I think Ajamu really hit it on the head. The discipline to learn how to learn, to love how to learn, I think is so important. I think for me, being curious has definitely gotten me very far. I actually had a very non-traditional, I guess, career, you could call it that. It's becoming much more regular now. I think we hear about it more and more. But I decided to be a stay-at-home parent for 5 years, and have 3 little ones. I got 3 kids, and I stepped away from engineering for 5 years, and I almost thought I probably won't go back. But you know what? I think the curiosity that's just built inside me is it definitely led me to say, I wonder what else I could do. And so having the curiosity to go back into engineering after being gone for 5 years definitely helped me to just keep pushing. When things felt like, oh, I don't know if I could get my license or get back into the job or go back to school. I mean, hello, I graduated like 10 years ago. That was definitely some obstacles, right? But the curiosity and the love to learn has really just pushed me through both of those things. And I would love for my kids to just see, what mommy does too. And it's not just with them all day, but I have lots of fun things that I do outside the home. So that curiosity, discipline to learn, just being able to be bold. If you if you have a question about something, guaranteed someone else also has that question, and ask it. You know, if you're thinking about it, it is not a dumb question or unreasonable. So, you know, you could try Googling it first, and if that doesn't come up, you know, pull someone aside, ping them on LinkedIn, reach out. I think if you reach out to people, they're going to see your eagerness and your resourcefulness and would love to have conversations with you. So like Ajama said, you guys are so young. Take advantage of that right now. You being here is a great step, but continue with it. And you guys are going to go far. I don't know if I would have ever known about anything like this at such a young age. So I'm glad you guys are all here. So.
Scholars is a great resource for you. So kudos for being here. Okay, and Vinny, what about you? What's kind of leading to your success?
I think everybody kind of hit the nail on the head with everything else, but I guess the first thing I learned in architecture school was question everything. Don't be afraid to ask those questions and kind of go at it. My first professor was like, hey, ask me a question until like you think you're being annoying, and like keep being annoying. For me at this point in my career, like I'm trying to tone down the annoying part, but still keep up the questions. But something I'm learning is like be a sponge, continue to be a sponge the rest of your career as well, because you're going to be learning pretty much the rest of your life. So just keep that up as much as possible. And then for me, keeping my goals in mind, keeping focus and going forward has really helped me as well with school and my career so far. So those are kind of the things so far.
Good. I see a great question in the chat. You know, what checks and balances do you use to make sure that you don't make mistakes? And I'd just like to offer first, before I'm going to send this over to May, it's okay to make mistakes. And I think you're expected to early on in your career. It's a learning time. But, you know, May, as someone really new into the professional world, like, what are you doing?
Oh, making mistakes every day. That's what
Okay.
I'm doing.
That's okay. Yes.
And I actually, you know, I have my supervisor and their supervisor that I'm in contact with quite a bit for a couple of my projects tell me all the time, I made mistakes the first 10 years of my career and I'm still making mistakes for today, and I'll make mistakes until I retire. The important thing is you learn from those mistakes. It's not necessarily trying to prevent every mistake. You know, in industry, we have these things like called quality checks, and that might like sound a little different at every place, but it's not just you checking your work. It's someone that's, you know, been around a little while longer checking your work. And then you go through many different layers of kind of checks and learning because that's what they expect you to do. College is great for learning how to learn, and engineering college teaches you a lot of, you know, things that are like very practical in a perfect world, right? But we don't live in a perfect world. So you really do just learn a lot on the job, and like the people around you help support you in that. And so those are your checks and balances. Of course, you want to like do your best and be accountable for your work because it is like at the end of the day, your name going on it. And it should be something that you should be proud of. So if I'm proud of the work I'm sending out, even if find out later that I'm making mistakes, that's always a good check for me. But the people around me really help support. And when I do make mistakes, another important thing to do is write it down, learn from them, try to commit that to memory, because you know you can ask the same question a million times and like while that's not necessarily a dumb thing to do, if you're never learning from like the answers and the things that you're given, you know, it's kind of pointless to ask the question in the first place. So make sure that you're learning from those things.
Great point, May. And Jami, from your perspective, for someone who's training people and probably see that people make a lot of mistakes regularly, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is a very interesting point because when I first started, I was afraid. When you're dealing with structural engineering, everything is so big. It looks small and manageable on paper, but when you go out to the field and you actually see what it looks like, it's frightening. And you sit there wondering, man, I certainly hope I put enough bolts in that connection. Well, that's natural. It's normal. And as I work with engineers, I train them that, if everything in here could be done by a book, you wouldn't need engineers. As long as there's judgment and creativity, then there's a person for a opportunity for a person to actually make a major contribution. Unfortunately, a lot of the advances we've made, particularly in structural engineering, have come from mistakes, that turn out to be disasters sometimes. But that should not prevent us from thinking creatively and thinking about how something can be done better and more efficiently. So yeah, we have, like May said, we have the checks and balances in place where somebody's reviewing your work and what have you. But this would be a very boring place if all we did was something exactly the way someone else had done it 50 years ago. This would be a very boring profession. That's why it's great to have young blood, new people come in. We got to have new ideas. We've got to have different approaches, and we've got to take risks. Yeah, we'll set up the practices to review what ourselves and do our best to make sure we're not sending out mistakes, but that's not what this industry is all about. This is about creating something new, advancing your community, advancing our knowledge base. And to do that, we got to give ourselves the permission to make mistakes. So don't worry about it. Just come in here and be creative, and we'll work with you on the rest.
Awesome. Now, Jeremy, that's a great segue to, I think, our closing question for tonight. You know, we have students here on the call that maybe aren't decided in their major or what path, you know, they have a general interest in our industry and maybe in like a technical degree in general. You know, what advice can you all offer to these students when deciding which path to take, you know, which engineering discipline to pursue, or engineer versus architect, like, and maybe what resources are available to you to help with that question. So, Crystal, why don't you offer some some advice there?
Well, I think just learning, you know, you guys being here now is a great first step. You get to hear from people who are in the job or are learning to be in the job, who've been in the job forever. And so you get to hear a lot of the experiences. So if you seek that out more, what's funny is if you go on YouTube, which you guys probably already know this, you could type in any kind of engineering, I think, and someone is making a YouTube channel just about what they do every day. So when I decided to go into structures, that's what I was doing. I was YouTubing, what do structural engineers actually do? And thank goodness some people actually made videos of themselves. So getting to learn what the differences are in structural engineering itself is another thing that I'm learning right now. But any engineering that you can think of is fascinating. I think all engineering is interesting because, like Ajamu said, it involves creativity, it involves some real critical thinking, but it also involves problem solving. Problems you see in your community, in the world, if you get passionate about something you want to fix, a lot of times engineers are a part of trying to find a solution. So just go out there and look those up, take in the content, and then just get to know what they do on a day-to-day basis. But it really just depends what you're passionate about too.
Vinny, what might you add to that?
So for me, I think you should definitely go talk to somebody that's very passionate about the field as well. For me, it was my very first architecture teacher. He got excited about how concrete was laying on the ground, and now I go into a building and I can get excited about like little minute details like that, or just kind of like little things. So definitely talk to somebody passionate, somebody that knows what they're talking about. Also go ahead and do your own research too. You're you know what you like, so you can apply that to kind of whichever career you like. And even if you are indecisive, that research might blossom into something else, some other interests that you might find. So definitely explore your options, talk to somebody passionate about something they do.
I love that. And I think we have Benny, Crystal, May, and Ajamu who are all very passionate about what they're doing. So these 4 people on our panel today are going to be great resources moving forward. And I'm going to make a shameless plug for Charmel as we close out, that we would invite mock interview opportunities, would invite job shadowing if you're interested in having a one-on-one dialogue to learn more from any of our wonderful panelists. That is something that Charmel is working towards creating programming for you all, for you scholars. So Charmel, well, first, thank you to the panelists. This was wonderful. You had wonderful insights. I love our industry even more after hearing from all of you. And I'm going to pass it over to Charmel for closing comments. Students in the chat, I am going to put in some links for you to stay in touch. So check out those, okay? Thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to our panelists. Before we close out, for those of you that are here on the call, I just want to remind you, can everyone see my screen with the KC Scholars website up? Right here on the Workforce tab, we have a new addition. It says Internships and Jobs. Know that if you go to this tab, you click on Internships and Jobs, this is the place to go, where you can find internships, you can find what's happening in full-time and part-time employment. I encourage each of you to regularly visit this page. This will be your way to stay connected to what's happening at KC Scholars. We thank you so much for your time this evening. We are so excited to connect you to the workforce. More importantly, I hope what you gleaned from tonight, you're not in this search alone. There are people just like you trying to figure out their next steps. I think the other thing that's really critical is that KC Scholars is such a diverse organization. And a lot of times we walk into spaces where we don't always see people that look like us. And I hope you see KC Scholars, I hope you see KC Global Design and everyone here on this call as representation that there is space for you. And please reach out, send me an email, swinsett@kcscholars.org if you have any questions or if you have recommendations on how we can better help you get connected. So with that,
before you go, can I say one thing?
Sure, please.
First of all, I want to take this opportunity to not only thank you for hosting this event, but thank you for sending us the young man, Edgar Atkins, because we did hire him as an intern.
Great, great. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ajamu. Thank you, May, Crystal, Vinny. We so appreciate you all being here. And Mary, again, thank you for being such an awesome collaborator.
Thank you for having us. If our panelists can stick around with Charmel, we should grab a picture, but the students are welcome to leave. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Charmel, I didn't know if you grabbed a picture, but I thought we should do that with us smiling.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, I can do it if everyone wants to look and smile. Okay, give it 1, 2.
Is there a way, Mary, is there a way, I don't know if I'm spotlighted. Or...
Oh, you're on there, I see you.
Okay,
so
okay.
I'll take it from my screen. I'll share it with you.
Okay.
All right. If everyone wants to smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay, stay smiling, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I got it.
Great.
All right. You all, that truly was wonderful. You did a great job. So
you did. Thank you, each of you.
Inspiration.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for putting it all together.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity.
I was
It's
taking
so
notes.
good.
I was taking notes
I
too,
know.
so.
Ajamu, will you be my mentor? I'm a psychology major.
Come on in.
Okay.
I'm totally looking y'all up on LinkedIn later for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Good to meet you all.
And,
Yeah,
and
really
something,
enjoyed it.
something you guys need to know is that when I reached out to Ajamu, I met him when I was a young girl. We had just moved to Kansas City from Pittsburgh, and I had a really hard time with math. And my mom said, girl, I'm taking you down to W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center on Saturdays so we can get those math skills together. And so I first met Ajamu probably when I was about 13 or 14 years old. So for me, I'm really
Wow.
smiling big on the inside because it's funny how life comes full circle, me being a full grown adult and being in this workforce space and having him, in this role and being able to share his knowledge with all of us. So this was a really cool night, and I really appreciated everybody on this panel because we serve such a broad group of students. Having all these different perspectives and the different stages was really, I think, impactful.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yep.
All right. Well, you guys stay in touch. I don't want this to be the
Yeah.
last time I hear.
Yeah.
I'll be around.
All right.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
all.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Bye.
Have a
To
good night.
everyone. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.